Thank you for joining us for another Junior Developer Happy Hour. I am really excited for everyone to get to hear Leanne Edwards' suggestions and everything that she has experienced in helping a bunch of junior developers get jobs after going through boot camps. And so a little bit about Junior Developer Happy Hour. It is AMA style, ask me anything style. So people can go ahead. I'm going to drop got something in the way here.
I just posted it.
Awesome, thank you. So that Slido link is going to be the best place for people to ask questions. That way people can upvote the questions. We can make sure that we're getting to the questions that the most people are interested in hearing. And then if there are any sort of follow-up questions, or if there's resources that we're talking about that anybody can link to, then the chat here in Zoom is the best place for that to happen. Let's see. Whew. It's been a few weeks, huh? But I think was that. Oh, and then if you're able to and want to stay until the very end, that's when we typically invite people to come off of mute again, and then we can have more of a conversation with everybody. So that is typically how this works. I'm Brady. I am one of the co-hosts, and Sam and I started this meetup like back in May. So we are just trying to help everybody keep up that like just don't give up, because it's rough getting your first job in tech, and this past year has been pretty insane, especially. So I am I'm a full stack engineer at Nordstrom, and I went to Dev Bootcamp back in 2017 and have basically been working at my job at the company. I started on at Trunk Club, and then they got fully absorbed into Nordstrom recently. But that's it about me. I'll let Sam say a couple of words. Take it over, Sam.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Sam. Currently not working as an engineer. I'm in the process of moving to Tulsa. I got into the Tulsa remote program. So I'm going to take a sabbatical. I was last working at Lyft as a front-end engineer, building internal tools for the mapping organization. I was there for like a year and a half. I've been a software engineer for about 7 years now. I went to Dev Bootcamp in spring of 2013. I also have a computer science degree though, which I got a long time ago, and I never broke into the industry that first time. I gave up too quickly. That's a long story. So I'm still planning to make a video to tell that whole story. I'll post it on my YouTube later. So yeah, that's a little bit of background on me. Just about the meetup, we have been doing AMAs every Saturday, and since I'm not working anymore full time, I've been experimenting with other happy hour meetups. So some of you may have attended. I've done mock front-end interviews. I'm a front-end developer, so I've been focusing on front-end practical interviews, not algos and data structure stuff. Kind of similar to like what Lyft does for their front-end interviews, but simpler, because the front-end interviews at Lyft are for more like more experienced developers, I think. So I've been trying to think of like interviews appropriate for junior developers. And we've also done a project showcase, and I don't know, I'm just gonna, if people have ideas, just talk about it in our Slack. I think Brian posted the Slack link that we use. So thanks for that. And he just posted it again. we gotta give you a raise.
5% raise.
50% raise or
Wow.
500% raise. Um,
Hi, Sam.
yeah. So this week, we have Leanne here from App Academy. So how about you give us a little intro about yourself and also maybe about App Academy too, and then people can start posting questions in the Slido.
Yeah, sure. That sounds great. Thank you guys so much for having me. I've been following your group now for quite some time, and Brady was kind enough to chat with me in regards to kind of getting this set up. So, yeah, my name is Leanne, and like I said, I'm based in Charleston, South Carolina. I am originally from Boston, but I've been down here now for, I don't know, I'm gonna date myself here, but probably like 22 or 3-ish years. Um, Let's see. So, yeah, I'm a behavioral coach at App Academy. So, what I do every day is interview prep and coach people that graduate from App Academy's bootcamp. So, we have an online group so you can live wherever. We have a New York group and a San Francisco group, and I kind of migrate between all three. So, I have the opportunity to work with students from all over. So, most of my day is spent, like I said, jumping in one-on-ones, prepping people. A lot of what I do is interview prep. That's kind of my sweet spot. That's what I love to do. My background, I actually worked for a startup, man, probably 6 or 7 years ago now. And I was the seventh hire. And it was a software company that we had a government contract, and we built a really cool culture around that government contract. So we went from 7 people. By the time I left after 4 years, we were 250, and we got acquired from Booz Allen. So it was a really, really fun and amazing time. I got to learn a ton about software engineering. I didn't know anything about software engineering, and luckily enough, I had really awesome developers that allowed me to sit in on a lot of the interviews, and I could sit in on their stand-ups. And so I really was able to kind of absorb all of it. Now, I'm very extroverted and I do talk a lot. I love people. I think being behind a computer writing code all day long would probably be the death of me, and I'm not good at math. So I decided to get as close as I could to the code. And App Academy had reached out and asked me if I was interested. And so I've been on board there now almost a year. Prior to that, I have about, I guess, 7 years of working on my own for a company that I built called One in a Mill. I built that from the ground up, and it is a culture-driven recruiting company. And my sweet spot was technical recruiting. So I did a lot of, I mean, every tech stack you can imagine, DevOps. I guess the coolest thing I probably ever worked on was I had to hire Rust and web assembly engineers in Poland and the Ukraine, and that was a really fun project. So I've kind of done it all, and right now I feel like I'm really in a good spot at App Academy where I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is working with engineers every day, all day to prep them to be the best they can be for the interview. So that's a little bit about me, I guess. Fun facts, I have 2 chow chows. They're about 70 pounds each. They're brother and sister. They're amazing. I have 2 stepkids. I'm married to a software engineer. He's been in the industry for about 25 years. I tried to hire him twice and he turned me down. So the joke is that I made him my husband instead. So we have a lot of fun talking, tech back and forth. What else? I'm a very, very crazy avid skier, and I play in a beer drinking hockey league, usually once or twice a week. So I play center, played hockey my whole life, growing up in Boston. But yeah, that's about it for me. Excited to hear all of your questions.
Awesome. Thank you. That's real dedication to your career to marry a software engineer.
I know we are polar opposites, but it works. It definitely works.
Excellent. All right. So I can just go on and jump into the questions here. This first one is, what are some successful ways to approach internal recruiters at companies?
Yeah, awesome. Great question. So one of the things I wanted to mention to you, Brady, and Sam as well. Brady, I think I sent this to you, but I'm not 100% sure. One of the things that I brought into App Academy was our creative outreach approach. And I believe I sent that to you. If I didn't, we'll share it later. But I have created, okay, awesome. It's about 6 hours worth of video of me just really sharing my screen and kind of doing backwards recruiting, right? So trying to figure out how to reach internal recruiters via creative outreach. And so that is simply finding a job, you know, on Google, ZipRecruiter, Dice, you name it, finding somebody who works there, and then taking one of 3 or 4 approaches, right? So 1, you could find a tech recruiter. 2, you could find a software engineer and see if there may be an opportunity to get a referral bonus. 3, you could just reach out to a senior engineer. There's lots of different ways to reach out to internal recruiters, but creative outreach to me is the best. And we at App Academy, we use Clearbit. If you haven't heard of Clearbit yet, it's a Chrome extension you can download for free, and you can grab everybody's email address like right in your browser and then just send someone an email internally rather than applying to the black hole. And I have templates for days if anybody needs templates that they need to kind of just get started.
Wonderful. Is that, let's see, Clearbit? Yeah, Clearbit, data done differently. Okay, I'll try to post that here in a second.
Do you have the link, Brady or Leanne, that we can post in the chat for
here,
the
just,
your videos?
Oh, they were attachments, right? I don't know that I can post them in the chat, but I could post them.
Post them in the Slack,
Yeah.
Yeah, we can put them in the Slack. It is a PDF, but there's a couple Google links to it. So Brady, I'll send that to you again when we are done here today if you want to Slack it out, or I can Slack it out later. I'll join your Slack today.
Thanks. Okay, so next question. Am I doing it wrong, or is it recruiters don't respond often to connection requests and emails about applications? It's hard to find someone to connect with.
Okay. So when you are connecting, are you sending a message or are you just blindly connecting?
This is, that's a good question. And it's anonymous. So if the person would like to respond in the Zoom chat, that's fine, or unmute themselves, that's fine. But let's assume that they are sending some sort of generic connection request with a message.
Yeah, definitely not doing it wrong. I would say that it's a numbers game for sure. So what I always tell my engineers when I'm working with them, and at App Academy, we have specific goals that we want to hit, and each coach has their own goals specifically for specific individuals. So say, for example, you're an engineer and you have to hit 25 applications. That's the bare minimum for the week, right? Now, if you're hitting 25 applications, right, that you're just doing quick applies and that's it, that's all you're doing, you're not going to get much out of that. I can promise you. If you are doing more like 100 applications a week and then 30 creative outreaches, which are really thoughtful and done articulately, then yes, you're going to make traction. So when you are reaching out and just connecting blindly, you always want to send a message. So if you are, great. If you are sending messages and you're connecting, make sure it's like during a normal time. So for example, due to this week's current events in our nation, we had to move we do a creative live outreach every Wednesday night where we just apply together for an hour and a half. And we had to move it to Friday night. And so we apply live and we do creative outreaches live, and everybody was like, well, you know, should I send it now? And I was like, no, you should wait until Monday. Anywhere between 9 and 2 during the week is when you want to send those messages. Because if someone tries to connect with me, even on, you know, a Friday night at 9 o'clock, like the odds of me reading it are pretty slim. And then the odds of me remembering about it on Monday are pretty slim. There's just too much coming in. Recruiters are extremely, extremely busy. So you have to be thoughtful about your timing and your message as well. Hopefully that answers your question.
I got a quick question about what you just said.
Sure.
Could you explain what you mean by you apply live? Like, what is that?
Yeah, sure. It's fun. So what we do every Wednesday night is from 6 to 7:30. And I'm happy to invite anybody that wants to come. For App Academy, what I do is, as a recruiter, I'm a technical recruiter, right? And I find jobs that people maybe haven't found on their own. So I will use, for example, like Reddit threads, right? To find new contacts. And then I'll find that conversation, I'll find the contacts, and then I will find them via LinkedIn and reach out, and we do it live. So for example, Sam, if you were on my live application session, I might say to you, you know, Sam, what have you been really dying to use that you haven't been able to use as far as a job search tool? And you'll be like, you know, I don't know, what about the Muse? Tell me about the Muse. I've heard about it, haven't used it. So we walk through it together and we pick a bunch of different people to creatively outreach. So I'll be like, okay, someone take her, someone take him, someone take her, or you can quick apply at the same time. So it's a way to collaborate, meet together, and kind of be in the same boat for an hour and a half once a week where you are holding yourself accountable.
Oh, wow. I never heard of that before.
I made it up.
Awesome. Do you have any recommended subreddits?
That's a good question. Yeah, I have a million.
Oh,
But if you type in, I mean, so to start with, it's the easiest way to do it is you could do our software, and then you could do each specific language. So for me, when I was telling you guys about hiring those Rust and WebAssembly engineers, it was interesting because it was for a blockchain company, and they didn't want anybody that was based in the US. They had to be in Poland or the Ukraine. And so I was trying to find people that were like in their basement with a hoodie on, like just not in the real world, right? And so I started doing backwards recruiting. I went on Reddit and all the Rust and WebAssembly threads and started meeting people, and that's how I made the hires, and it worked. So you guys could do the same thing by following the React page, Python, JavaScript, Vue, I mean, you name it, right? There's also a group that's now hiring softwares. I guess I could probably put together a quick list for you guys after this, but there's a lot of Reddit threads out there that you could definitely join and get some traction from.
awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so this person is not getting responses from applications, leads them to believe that it could be their resume. What could they do without looking at their resume to improve the resume for ATS software? And then a follow-up question is, are PDFs bad?
No, PDFs are not bad. Without looking at the resume, the first thing that comes to mind is just making sure that you have all the right keywords in there, which you probably do if you graduated from a boot camp. They're pretty good about making sure the keywords are in there. Recruiters are constantly doing Boolean searches, right? So I will be doing React and or JavaScript and or, Ruby, whatever it might be, whatever I'm looking for. So you need keywords. It's got to be clear and concise. And if you are, one of the biggest things that we come across in App Academy is if you are currently just job searching, and I say just with a little bit of hesitation because I know that is like probably the hardest thing that you've ever done or you are doing. It's a lot. If you're job searching and you're currently not working and your last job on your resume is dated like, I don't know, 2018 or 2019, you will not make it through the applicant tracking system. So for example, as a recruiter on my end, I use Workable. So I take Workable, and when I post a new job, I'm able to click a ton of different features that I want to make sure do not get in my inbox, right? So nobody will get into my inbox that is not currently a software engineer, currently working. So if that makes sense, what I suggest people to do in order to make yourself current, right? So if I look at your resume and I have to scroll through all your projects, and all I can see is that you haven't done anything since 2018 or 19 because you've been in boot camp and you've been in the job search, then I'm automatically going to move on because it's too much work. And most recruiters are just not well versed in this. But with an applicant tracking system, if you put Upwork on there or Fiverr, or you find an internship that's free, like there's Bon Harvest, there's Tutoria, there's tons of places that you could put on there that would allow you to be present as a software engineer, which means you'll now come up in the recruiter searches, which will then get you the phone interview. Does that make sense?
I'm following, yeah.
Okay.
So there was a follow-up question. There's a couple of follow-up questions. Should people be putting dates on their projects? Would that be helpful at all?
They could put dates on their project. Yeah, I never actually thought about that. That's not a bad idea at all.
Okay. And then you had been talking about keywords. Does the number of keywords matter? Like for SEO type things, I've always heard that if you have a keyword a couple of times, like on LinkedIn especially, it helps show up in a recruiter's search maybe. But if they use one keyword, is that enough? Sometimes it's hard to make meaningful use of the same keyword multiple times. And on a resume, you have a limited space.
Yeah, definitely. I also just added in another research tool in the chat. It's called jobscan.com if you guys haven't heard of that, but it's a way to really maximize all of your keywords. And what you do is you put your resume in there and it basically like searches and tells you where you need to add them or take them out. But yeah, I think that the keywords are really, really necessary. So what I always like to see is the tech stack at the top. I want to see what you can do first and foremost before I even, because you got to think I'm looking at this resume really, really fast, right? So I want to see on the top what skills you are fluent in. And then during your projects or any work or research, you can definitely add in other keywords, but it's okay to use them once or twice. That doesn't matter. You could use them 2-3 times. It doesn't matter as long as they're on there and they come up in my search.
All right, thank you.
Of course.
Okay, so next question here. After a final round interview, I didn't receive an offer or any feedback. Should I connect with all of my interviewers on LinkedIn, or is that frowned upon?
If this is not anonymous, can I ask a follow-up question to that? Did you send a thank you email at all?
It is currently marked as anonymous.
Okay.
But again,
So
if the person feels okay writing or unmuting, that's totally fine. And let's just assume, could you go through both scenarios maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you didn't write a thank you follow-up, you need to write a thank you follow-up every time, all the time. It's very, very important for every single person that you interview with. So just keep that in mind moving forward. So if you didn't, it's okay. But moving forward, every interview that you have needs to have a special interview. Thank you. Like, hey, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you for telling me more about the opportunity. I look forward to next steps because they want to know that you're engaged. They want to see your follow through and your follow up. So it's very, very important. So if you didn't send a thank you note, yes, I would now connect with them and send a thank you note that way if that's the only means that you have. If you have their email addresses, I don't think it's too late. It's the holidays. The world has been in shambles. Use that to your advantage, right? And just say, I know a lot's been going on. It's the new year. I really just wanted to check in and see how things were going, and just check on the status of this this application since you did go through the entire process. If you did send a thank you note and you never heard anything back, then if it hasn't been that long, I might wait a little bit. But if it's been like a few weeks, I maybe would connect with the individuals that you interview with and thank them for their time and say, unfortunately, I haven't heard anything back. No worries. I hope you have a great, happy new year, happy 2021. And please keep me in mind for future opportunities. That way it's all about building connections and relationships with recruiters and or hiring managers, because who knows, what if one of them really loved you and they may not even be at that company in a year from now. And they might be like, oh yeah, this guy, he came up on my LinkedIn feed. Like, I'm going to reach out to him. So it's about you owning those connections and building those relationships.
Yeah, very well said. Sorry.
And for me personally, I almost always connect with I bombed a lot of interviews in my career. I just connect with the people. What's the worst that can happen? They don't connect with you.
Exactly. And you don't even know. You don't even if you're connecting with so many people, you won't even know. It won't even hurt your feelings.
All right. Got too many things going on here. Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
I'm shifting to backend after 10 years in a different industry. I'm am fragile to a downgrade, to a salary downgrade. So how can this person increase the chances of getting a good first job that's well paid as a backend engineer?
Is that anonymous at all, or can I ask a follow-up question?
There is a name, Ahmed, if you'd like to, would you be able to answer some follow-up questions?
Oh, there he is.
Okay,
He said
cool.
yes. Okay, awesome. What were you doing, or did you just graduate a boot camp? And what were you doing for the last decade?
Okay, it will be better to answer this here.
Okay.
Sure, thank you.
I'm working in call center operations in middle management position for the last 3 years. Last year, I joined a postgraduate diploma in computer science for the people who weren't in computer science education. Also, I'm self-learning. I'm learning myself PHP and some stuff that allow me to work in backend, MySQL, and so on.
Okay. Do you have what does your GitHub look like right now? Are we green? How is that looking?
That is a topic where I'm struggling to cope with because I'm not working or not collaborating with other people. So I have some projects, but I even don't know where I can check what you are asking about.
Okay. Do you have a portfolio of your projects that you can show to potential employers?
Yes.
Okay.
I have 2 projects on my GitHub account, and I'm having a customized CV for the experience I gained during the last year.
Okay. Do you feel like you are competent enough on the back end to hit the ground running with minimal handholding if you were to accept a job today?
I feel like I'm comfortable with some basic tasks like creating CRUD websites and stuff like that.
Okay. Then if I were you, and again, I haven't seen your resume or your GitHub or your portfolio, so this is me kind of just blindly answering. And I will share Brady has my email address, but I'll share my LinkedIn in a minute here in the chat too, so you guys can reach out to me individually if you have questions like this. But if you know that you can do the job, you have a GitHub that is green and flourishing, and you can talk about your projects that are inside of your portfolio, and you know that you can do the job, I wouldn't worry about your background or anything like that. I would say when I'm working with App Academy grads, the way that we handle the salary question is very unique in that it is. So let me give you an example. So if I were to say to you, Ahmed, what would your salary requirements be? And you are not trying to take a cut, right? And you're trying to make sure that you can stay in the salary range that you want to be in. What would your answer be right now? Do you have like a solid answer, or do you want me would it be better for me to give you an example?
Actually, I don't have an answer. I tried to. I already passed through this experience in a part-time job, and actually couldn't give an answer because I can't evaluate where I am standing from the other skilled people.
Okay, so what I always like to say is when I'm asked, or when people are asking the salary question is, thank you, that's a great question. So I've done a lot of research, and I've looked at glassdoor.com, salary.com, as well as themuse.com. I've also reached out to multiple different alumni and cohort mates, or whoever you have in your circle right now that you could use. And it looks like the going rate for somebody with my level of back-end experience is anywhere between 90 and 110. I'm just throwing that out there, right? But so let me break this down. So you're giving exact facts, right? You did your research, you reached out to people, and all you're doing is saying that this is the market value of what I know that other people are getting paid with this experience because you have this experience, right? So it shouldn't matter what you're making, what you were making before, what you're making now. If you know that that's what you bring to the table, then your salary range, depending on where you are, you need to give that range based on the facts that are out there. Where are you living right now?
Egypt.
Okay, so I'm not familiar with what that salary range would look like comparative to USD, but if you were living in New York, I would give you, the range of anywhere from 85 to 120, right? So that's a pretty big range, but you just need to own that since you know you can bring to the table what they need as far as a skill set is concerned. Does that help?
Thank you. Yes, very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, great. Here, this next question is, what has changed regarding how companies approach hiring given the current state of the pandemic? Do we think that these trends will continue in the future?
Yeah, good question. I would say that the definition of an on-site has completely changed. And so getting used to, I've had a lot of job seekers lately send me agendas where it's like 5 hours straight that they're sitting in a room with, breaks in between, and they're calling it an on-site still, but it's half technical, half behavioral, and kind of mixing it up. So nothing's really changed in that sense too much. Is just that everything is remote and it seems to be one-on-one, but like, okay, the first hour you're going to meet with so-and-so, second hour so-and-so, and sometimes you'll get in and do a whiteboarding exercise. So that's changed a little bit, but I feel like, let's see, in the last quarter, fourth quarter, I had 18 hires at App Academy, and every one of them had no glitches. All of their onboarding was done seamlessly. Just sent them a Mac in the mail, anything else that they needed, and it seemed to be pretty seamless and easy. So no complaints out there, and people are kind of moving forward. And hopefully with the vaccine and how things are going, hopefully we'll somewhat get back to normal. But I haven't seen too many changes. It's just a matter of, I guess, us kind of realizing that we can actually do a lot of stuff online. We don't have to be in person, whether that's good or bad.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, my on-site. I was so exhausted from talking to so many people. I imagine being just online wouldn't be that different. Maybe even more exhausting. I don't know.
Was
Okay.
that for Nordstrom? Was it? Or
Yeah.
for Trunk?
Well, Trunk Club. Yeah. Yeah. It was the longest interview I'd ever had at that point.
Well, and a lot of what I'm seeing too is people having to jump into a Google room on a Google Doc and write code together, and so it's just, instead of whiteboarding in front of people, maybe it's kind of a better thing. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, you don't want me touching any lines of code.
All right. How effective is adding a portfolio website to your application? Do recruiters really look at them?
Yes, we absolutely do. 100%. I would say that if you don't have one, you are putting yourself into a pool that is not competitive at all. As a recruiter, I want to see your projects because I want to see if you have an eye for design. Maybe it's a front end role that I'm hiring for, and I want to make sure that it looks pretty and it functions well. And I try everything out. I mean, I do take the time if I'm serious about hiring you. I make sure that I go through everything. Now, that said, I will tell you that from a recruiting standpoint, your portfolio is very, very important. Your resume is important. Cover letter is important. But the most important, 100%, is your LinkedIn. And the reason being is because as a recruiter, if I have to look at 500 resumes a day, right? Like my eyes are like burning. So when I am looking at applicants that come in and I can see the UI of LinkedIn, I can see your projects from there. I can see your portfolio from there. I can see any recommendations that you may have had, right? So I can see soft skills as well, and everything just visually looks better. So if your LinkedIn is not to the best of your ability, just trust and believe that if I come to your LinkedIn and I don't like what I see, I'm never going to open your resume. So it doesn't matter how good your resume is. I need your portfolio and your LinkedIn to be number 1 and number 2, and LinkedIn is number 1.
And then it looks like a follow-up question for that portfolio piece. Should there be gifs of the projects to make it easier for recruiters?
Yes, if you look at, well, I can't say everybody, but everyone that we are working with right now, we don't even let people apply for jobs unless all of their projects are on their LinkedIn with the gifs in the meta tags all set. So it's got to look beautiful, perfect, easy, clickable. If it's not, the recruiter is going to move on.
Yeah, great point there. Okay. What can people do to mitigate being ghosted by a recruiter?
Yeah, I would say that's a good one. Man, recruiters, we just don't have a good rap at all. At all. I would say I loved being an internal recruiter much better than I liked being an external recruiter. That's for sure. So I would say when I say the word creative outreach, what I mean by that is literally saying to yourself, like outside of the 50 quick applies I'm going to do this week, I'm going to set aside this many hours and this many creative outreaches. And that literally means going to a company, finding an open job, and reaching out directly to a recruiter. I would say the best way to not get ghosted and to hear back and make traction is to just reach out. It is a numbers game, right? So as a recruiter, I didn't have a good day if I didn't reach out to 100 people on LinkedIn. I'm not joking you, 100 people a day when I was sourcing. If I had a sourcing day, I didn't go into the office. I had to close all the tabs, block everybody out, and just focus and get 100 of the LinkedIn messages. Because you know why? When I came back the next day or 2 days later, I maybe would have 2 responses out of 100. And out of those 2, maybe only one would be a good fit. The other one wouldn't relocate, right? So 1 out of every 100 message that you send is where you're going to find results. And I know that's hard to hear, and I know that sucks, but it is real life. It's real life for recruiters as well. And eventually you're going to be on the other side of this where recruiters are going to be reaching out to you and you're going to put in your subject line, not open for any job opportunities. I promise you, you will get there. So I don't know, ghosting people sucks. And we try not to do it as much as possible, but I would say your best bet is to make a relationship with a recruiter. And even if they don't respond, continue to send another message and say, hey, I reached out like a few months ago. Looks like you guys filled that position. Congratulations. Keep me posted on anything that might be, might come in the future that I might be a good fit for, and start to build relationships with recruiters so that they have respect and trust for you.
Yep, back to the good old networking.
I know, right? Well, and one of the things that Brady, I've been telling people about this event is if I were a software engineer and I was looking for a job, I would literally go onto the attendees and find every single person that was here today, reach out to them ahead of time and say, hey, I'm going to be at so-and-so happy hour, and I saw that you are too. Thanks for connecting. Don't ask to connect. Say thank you for connecting, and then you now have a new connection. And after today, you should have 150 new connections, and someone might be working in a place that you want to work at. And if they're not now, they will be in a year or two. So you want to keep these people in your network. You have to think like that.
Mm-hmm. That's very, very smart. I did see, there was a follow-up question to something that we had been talking about. How do you maintain relationships with clients who transition into full-time employees?
I'm not sure I understand that one completely. How do you maintain relationships with people
I think
that
as
turn in...
like you as a recruiter, do you maintain relationships with the people who end up becoming full-time employees somewhere?
Oh, yes. I golf with a lot of them, actually. I have a plethora of engineers that I've hired 3 and 4 times over. I'm not even kidding you. As a recruiter, I know that that is the way that, so I don't know, I love recruiting, obviously. I'm very passionate about it. But if someone calls me and says, hey, I need a Python developer on the back end, React or Vue on the front end, either one's fine. Can you get it to me like soon? I have a whole pool of people in my head. Like I could be driving down the road and I'm like, oh, okay, Adam, Ryan, like I can just like name them off the top of my head who might be looking, because I do a really good job of keeping in touch. And my intent would be to hire you 3 times over.
Wow. Okay. All right. Next one here. I get rejected for junior roles after a somewhat successful interview because they don't have the bandwidth to hire junior developers. What are your tips to get past that?
So can I ask a follow-up question to this one?
You can ask. It's anonymous.
Okay. If that person is here, I'm wondering if you went to a boot camp. If you did, then I do have a trick for that. And either way, this trick is helpful for anybody, actually. So for me, what I teach people to do at App Academy is to go into the App Academy page. And if you type in under people, there's a tab there that you can see with people. And this is all in the creative outreach spreadsheet that we'll share with you. I walk you through step by step, but if you type in people and you do just put, like, say, for example, New York, right? Right now, you're going to get about, I don't know, 1,800 engineers that are in New York that are App Academy alum. And what I would do if I were you, if I weren't making any traction, is I would go all the way back. And this could be for any boot camp. So think about how many boot camps are out there. It doesn't matter if you went there or not. Somebody at a boot camp has something in common with you because you both went to a boot camp, right? So it doesn't matter which one. You go back and you scroll down and you find the ones that graduated maybe in 16, 17, 18, right? And then you look at where they went to right out of boot camp. What was their first company that they went to? You write that down. And now I know that this takes a lot of time, but that would give you 1,300 new places to apply where you know that they accept bootcamp grads because you've already seen an alumni do it. You're staring at them. You don't even have to reach out to that person. All you've done now is you found a company that you know hires new grads from boot camps, and you can go research that company, see if they're hiring. And if they are, then you could reach out creative outreach or do a quick apply. But that's the trick that I always like to tell people. And there's multiple boot camps out there in the States right now. So that could be, I mean, you could put hours into that.
That's a great idea.
So I guess the point I was trying to make is you have to go after the companies you know that have proven to hire junior engineers right out of boot camps. Where are those companies? That's what you need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder, I know some people have expressed interest in helping this community out. I wonder if we could get a group of people helping from a couple of different areas in the country, kind of do that research and pool some spreadsheet together or something. Maybe send me a Slack message after this meetup if that'd be interesting for anyone to help out doing. So next one, should we apply for entry level only? There are not that many positions. I feel like people with the experience apply for these too. Competition is super tough.
Yes. Okay. So I do have an answer for that. My go-to is apply for anything that is under 4 years. And let me tell you why. You probably think I'm crazy, but anything that you are 60% qualified for, you need to be applying for. How do I know that this works? Because I just hired 18 of them last quarter, right? Like I understand when people come to me. So before I prep somebody, they will say to me, hey, LA, I go by LA, Leanne, LA. Hey, LA, I've got a job interview. I've sent you the job description. I've sent you the company, and I've sent you the LinkedIn of the person that I'm talking to. That's what I require. I also have a recruiting toolbox that I require them to fill out beforehand, and then we run through both of them. Every single job description that these people have sent me has never, ever been under a year. It's been anywhere from 2 to 5 years of experience. And guess what? They got hired. Why did they get hired? Because they went to a boot camp and they know what they're doing, right? They can speak the language, they can write the code, they can answer the questions. So don't worry about it having to be entry level. It doesn't have to be entry level. You have great experience. And if you have anything under 4 years, I would say always apply. And I'm telling you, I promise you to my core, these people are getting jobs, even though it says 3 to 5 years. I see it every day.
I cannot second that enough. The other reason that I have personally experienced, I applied for a job that required 2 or 3 years of experience when I was right out of boot camp. And I was expecting something like this, like maybe they'll just train me. But the recruiter recognized some of the experience on my resume, and I had not applied for the more junior role because I didn't recognize the name that they had assigned, like the title. It was application operations engineer. It was tech support. We can go on a whole other tangent of that may or may not be a good opportunity to become a software engineer depending on the company, but the recruiter saw that I might be a better fit for a different position, and they were able to connect the dots, contact me, and see if I was interested in that. And then I got my first job. So, yeah.
That's awesome, Brady. And, you know, the other thing too is I always tell this to my job seekers is that if you are hitting up technical recruiters and they're good at their job, they are going to reach back out to you, because even if they don't have something right now, like Brady said, they're going to be able to connect the dots like any good recruiter can and be like, okay, this person maybe needs to go over here because I might have something over here that requires 1 to 3 years and I could put him there. So I, or her there, I'm going to hold tight on this one and keep in touch with them. So you just have to not be afraid. Don't self reject. So just telling yourself that I don't know Java or I don't know Python, it doesn't matter. You know the syntax, you understand how to pick up on things quickly. Hell, you made it through boot camp, right? So you just have to keep applying to everything. And then once you get there, you'll deal with the interview when you get there. And hopefully you have a coach. If you don't, you know, I'm sure, you know, there's plenty of people that you could reach out to. And, you know, I think that overall, like, just not being afraid is number one. You got to not be afraid.
Yeah. Okay, next question here. What do you look for in a portfolio?
Good question. So I like to be able to use, so in a portfolio, I want to see your projects and I want to make sure that everything's working. So I walk through it as a demo user all the time to make sure that everything looks good and I'm impressed by the projects that you have. I want to have your contact information, your GitHub link, Angel List if you have one, and then your LinkedIn as well. Make my life easier as a recruiter, put everything on there and don't make me have to go look for things. That is the biggest key component here. Even with your resume, any chance that you get to hyperlink stuff, like a previous company that you worked at or App Academy, whatever it might be, hyperlink it and make the recruiter's life much easier. So you want to have your basics on there. I like pictures too. I like, you know, feeling like I know who I'm talking to. So a picture of yourself would be perfect. Doesn't have to be something super professional and boring. It can be fun as well. Just obviously nothing inappropriate. But I had a guy that we just finished his and he has a really nice picture of himself skiing. And like, I like that. I think it's cool. It tells a little bit more to the story, you know?
Why do you want a LinkedIn Angel List? Isn't that just like a subset of your LinkedIn?
It is. It's basically the same thing, but if I'm on Angel List and I'm recruiting on Angel List, it's just easier for me to click on your profile there because I'm already in Angel List. I don't know.
Okay.
It's not, you know, a do or die, but it's just something extra that if you have it, add it in there.
Thanks.
All right. Next question on our Slido is, do you have any tips for talking with a recruiter on the phone? I assume they will be driving the conversation. So maybe like what topics to talk about?
Yeah. So usually, okay, so the first call that you have with the recruiter, just remember that call, there's a couple things to remember here. That if the recruiter took the time to set up a phone call with you, she's done her or he has done their research on you beforehand. So they're not going to waste 15, 20, 30 minutes of their time talking to you without doing research. So you're there for a reason. So go in with confidence knowing that this person has set aside time to talk to you. And your only goal of that conversation is to make sure that by the end of the conversation, you got that person to like you. That's it. You need to build rapport. You need to be able to give a clear personal pitch on who you are and what you bring to the table. And the recruiter should drive the conversation, but you always want to have some questions lined up as well. And some of my favorites are, if, say, for example, I was interviewing with Braidy, I might say, if she was my recruiter, I might say to her, Braidy, it looks like you have been with Nordstrom and Trunk for, I don't know, a year or so. Tell me a little bit about why you love working there. Tell me a little bit about the day, a day in the life of. There's a lot of questions that you could ask the recruiter, but normally they would drive the conversation and they just want to know about you. So having your personal pitch down is definitely key. I would practice that over and over again.
Thank you. If I can say, it was a little bit of like a unique scenario. The
Okay.
recruiter originally connected with me and like sent me a message for a different position, for a project manager position, which is my background.
Okay.
And I just said that, hey, thank you for thinking of me. I'm in a boot camp right now, transitioning into a more technical role. I'm not available right now to do the job, but might be interested in the future. And then they messaged back like, we actually have a developer position if you're interested in, like, they want to talk with me. So yeah, it was a little bit of like a weird situation, but apparently they did look at my background a lot.
When do you talk to them?
Yesterday.
Oh, yesterday.
No. They sent me an email yesterday. I'm talking with them on Tuesday.
Okay, cool. Do you feel prepped?
Yeah, I would say like I'm very comfortable talking with people, but I'm not ready for the actual interview process, which I was upfront about. So
Okay.
I don't know why she still wants to talk to me, because I'm simply not ready yet. I didn't even apply to a job. They reached out to me.
Yeah. Well, I would take it for practice for sure, because honestly, I have some people that come to me after boot camp and they're like, I'm only going to work at Google and that's the end of it. And I'm like, cool, that's fine. But along the way, we have to interview with other companies so that you're ready for Google, right? So if you get this interview, this is a blessing, right? You want to practice with this person, even if this isn't a job that you want. Practice just to get that underneath your belt. And even with how awkward it is, being like, basically, I'm not ready, but I am a project manager who turned software engineer. Let's talk about what options you do have. You never know. It could open a door that you just weren't even expecting.
Cool. Thank you for
Yeah.
the advice.
Of course.
All right, next one then. A company asked for my social media. How should I respond?
Oh, wow. I'm not even sure that's legal. Did they ask? Well, if I can ask a follow-up, if they ask for specifics, I would love to know that. But so most recruiters, I'm not on the right laptop, but at another time, maybe I could show you guys. But so like I said, I use Workable. And if you were to apply to one of my jobs today, so you would apply all the applications go to the back end that's hooked up to my Squarespace through Workable, right? So they all come in that way. And when they do, say if Braidy was going to be applying to one of my open jobs, the data that would be aggregated would be all populated there for me. So I would see her Facebook, her Pinterest, her GitHub. I would see everything as little icons to click on. So it's concerning that they would even ask for that, because they should already be able to see all of that stuff, which is another reason why I can tell you tried and true, make sure that your social media is clean when you are applying for a job, because it's literally delivered to us on a silver platter now, right? And you don't want to get into that sticky situation. But yeah, that's a weird question. I would be curious to find out what kind of social media they wanted.
Yeah, I would just give them LinkedIn if they
Yeah.
ask me.
Agreed.
Good call. Good call. Or LinkedIn, GitHub, and AngelList. Done.
Yeah.
And then I would make everything else private.
All righty. Let's see. Any tips to improve my LinkedIn account to look like I'm willing to shift my career without provoking my current boss, if possible?
Huh. If there is a follow-up, if I can ask a follow-up question, what kind of role are you in right now?
This is actually the same Ahmed from before.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes, there's ways to beef it up without people being suspicious. So when you're thinking about your LinkedIn, you want to make sure that every certification or accomplishment that you have is on there. One of the other things you could do is start recommendations on your LinkedIn, which are very important to me. I know I mentioned them before, but if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of LinkedIn, when I am screening for somebody that applied, I will go through their whole LinkedIn, but at the bottom, I'm really looking for the recommendations. I want to hear what other people have to say about this human because it helps me do the culture interviewing really fast. So I can look at this and say, okay, hard worker, reliable, fun to work with, all the different soft skills I'm trying to pick out. That's one thing that you could start to do. It's very easy to do. You ask for a recommendation from any colleagues or people you went to school with or people that you think would be a good judge of your character. But also make sure the easiest way to do this is giving a recommendation before asking for one. That always is helpful. So that's one way that you can. I would also start joining groups. If there's a specific type of job you're looking for, I would start joining LinkedIn groups. So for me, as a recruiter, the ones that I use, I post all my jobs in the Python group, JavaScript group, React group, Vue. Same thing with Reddit. There's millions of groups that you can join. And I would do that as far as getting yourself noticed on LinkedIn as well.
Mhm.
Also, I got a tip for recommendations on LinkedIn. You could also do pro bono work and just ask the person for a recommendation instead of getting paid. Because in my opinion, if it's like your first gig, that gives you something to work on, and then you get a recommendation. And if you do a good job, they're going to write a really good recommendation, especially since you did it for free. I actually have a really good recommendation on my LinkedIn. I made the website for Reactathon, which is a React conference. And the organizer actually offered to pay me, but I told him he doesn't need to pay me. And instead, I asked him for a recommendation on LinkedIn and just tickets to the conference and workshops that they had. So yeah, just one tip that I use.
Yeah, excellent. All right. So recent bootcamp grad. Before this, they owned their own restaurants for 5 years. No college degree. It sounds like no BA. A little more in the midlife age. And they're worried about no tech background and being able to get a job from that background.
Okay.
Yeah, there isn't a
So-
specific question, but I guess maybe implied, like, what are their chances maybe?
Yeah, I think the chances are really good. And just as a side note, in the chat, I put in there the Bon Harvest and Tutoria. Those are the two companies that let you do pro bono open source work. So you can pull tickets like all weekend long. And I've had, if you look at it, there's like 4 people recently that just got hired. They got full-time jobs outside of doing Tutoria specifically. That one's out of New York. Bon Harvest is in California, and then Upwork is, obviously global. So anyway, just keep those in the back of your mind too, as far as pro bono, because you can talk about those live tickets that you've been working on in your interviews, which is just in addition to your projects. But okay, so to answer your question, I just had a guy that has been a professional chef for the last 15 years, have no experience, no college education, come to App Academy, and he was one of the first ones out of the cohort to get a job. He was one of my star job seekers. He probably did 150 applications a week. He did a ton of creative outreach. He used every resource that we gave him, and he was fully immersed in the job search and made it his number one. And he just said, you know, I love cooking and I love what I do, but to me, that needs to be a hobby now. I've always been a software engineer, and I knew that I just needed to go to App Academy to really hone in on my skills. And now he's crushing it and he's doing great. Like literally no background, just knowing that he's good in math and good with solving problems his whole life. Like he would put on his Slack that he was busy doing crossword puzzles. Like he was that kind of guy. So he just knew that he was needed to be a software engineer, and he went after it. Yeah. So if you put into what you need to this job search, you will get out of it what you deserve. So it doesn't matter what your background is at all. I have another guy who did construction, no background at all, and he's working at Lyft as an engineer. He was also one of the first ones to get a job. So it's totally doable. It's all in your hands. Is your GitHub green? Does your portfolio look good? Is your LinkedIn awesome? Are you taking the time to prep with whatever coach you have to make sure that you're set up for success in the interview? It's taking all those steps.
Yes. And then I like to, oh, go ahead, Sam.
I was just going to ask a quick question about bone harvest and tutorial. You were saying that you can just take tickets. So how does that work? Could you just explain that real quick?
Of course, yeah. So I know a little bit more about Tutoria because I've had 4 or 5 people go through the program. Bond Harvest is new to me. But what you do is you reach out to somebody at Tutoria. They are a nonprofit online learning company of some sort. And what they do is they hire engineers out of boot camp to give them experience on their resume, but they don't pay them. So you have to go through an interview process, but it's very quick and very easy to go through. And basically, once you get on there, there's just a bunch of open source tickets that they have people working on, and you just pull which ones you want to work on. And a lot of times I had engineers that would do it together over the weekend and like work on something together and then add it to their GitHub and their portfolio. And so they had other stuff to talk about. So you do have to go through an interview process, but it's quick.
And it's just smaller tasks. It's not like a whole like project.
Yeah, supposedly what they had told me, Jonathan and Eric specifically had said that they were very, like small, like you're not adding like chat features or anything crazy like that. You're just doing like fixing bugs and things like that, but enough to be able to talk about.
Oh, that's super awesome. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, and I guess they were really nice people to work with too. Like they had nothing but great things to say.
All right, thanks.
Oh, and then I was just going to also talk about responding to the worry about age and no tech background. I mean, basically anyone, well, not anyone, Sam is the rule breaker in this, of so many people who go to boot camps have no tech background. I came from a liberal arts background, but then the age, like with age comes a lot of wisdom usually. And hearing that this person owned restaurants for 5 years, think about how well they understand how a business needs to work and all of just the business knowledge that someone might be able to bring to a company is going to be very valuable. So I feel like either way, there are pros and cons in everybody's situation, but if you can focus on the pros that you bring to the table, that's just going to make you feel more confident. And then that's going to end up bringing you more success.
Yeah, there is unconscious bias out there though. So it's another reason not to put dates for like your education. Like for me, I don't put dates on my education. I just put that I went to school here. I went to that boot camp. You don't need to worry about when I went there.
I would also say too, like, I feel as though, and maybe I'm naive in saying this, but for me anyway, and I guess the people I surround myself with, I feel like the mentality has changed slightly with like what you said, Brady, is when I look at someone that comes from a restaurant background, I think of all those other skills, being able to hustle, being able to work under pressure, understanding an organization and a business. Like I I feel like as a human and as an adult professional, you should be good at multiple things. You don't have to be good at just one thing. I'll give you a funny fact about me. I'm a dental hygienist as well. So when I go in and I temp in offices and they're like, well, can you work like, tomorrow, whatever. I'm like, no, I'm a tech recruiter / coach. And they're like, what? How do you just turn on this hygiene thing? I'm like, cause I love teeth and I can get into it and like do what I do, but like no one knows what else I do on the other side unless you ask. Right. So it's okay to be good at multiple different things. And so be proud of that restaurant background. Like working in a restaurant is not an easy feat. I've done it myself. And you pull a lot of skills from that background that you could then bring into your new career as well.
Yep, you gotta practice telling your story about how you can bring all those skills and help the company that you're applying to.
Exactly.
All right. So, what types of reservations do companies and recruiters have towards hiring self-taught developers?
That's a good question. So for me, again, I'm not sure that I can speak for everybody, but as long as you can pass the coding challenge and the engineers are happy with your solution and or happy with your thought process on how you got to said solution, then there shouldn't be any bias, in my opinion. If you can get the job done, then it should be a no-brainer. It's not always like that in the real world. I understand that. So you have to find the people that do think like that think, you know what, we just want somebody, super technical. It's okay that they taught themselves. There's so many resources out there to teach yourself. It would be really ignorant for me as a recruiter to be like, well, that just doesn't count. Why would that not count? Right? Like you're spending your time doing Leak Code, Udemy Code, like, Hacker Rank. There's so many ways for you to test your own skills and knowledge. And I would be an idiot if I just turned you away because you were self-taught, but that's my view. So I would find people with that kind of mentality, and they are out there.
And that could go back. I feel like a lot of companies who are more willing to hire bootcamp grads would also be willing to hire self-taught developers. So maybe if we get that list going, those could be the types of companies that you can look at.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thoughts on the importance of a highly customized cover letter for each position you apply for?
So my initial thoughts are work really, really smart and not as hard. Your time is so valuable, and I only learned that now as I'm like I just turned 40, God bless. And I feel like my time now has become really my number one most important thing in my entire life. So I would say that yes, a very awesome cover letter is great. However, I feel like this is just me as a recruiter, but I feel like it's more important for you to just craft a really good email template that you can send as a creative outreach. And so, for example, if I want to work at, I don't know, let me just throw something out there. If I want to work at the Muse, right? If anybody is not familiar with the Muse, muse.com, themuse.com, it's like my favorite website. They have really good career coaching, and all of their jobs that they post, their companies that they highlight have all won like best places to work and fastest growing companies. So it's just a really cool place, and I would love to work there one day. But I love my job at App Academy. So, but no, yeah, if I were to be like looking and I were reaching out, I would find a recruiter, or I might even find the CEO, and write a really good, nice handcrafted email through Clearbit with a funny subject, one that would get them to open it, right? Like my dream job has been to work at the Muse and say, hey, name, like I am, I hope you're having a great day. Always start it with a nicety and say, I've always wanted to work at the Muse. I saw that you had something open. I've attached my resume. Here's a link to my portfolio to make your life easier. Please let me know if this is a good match or you have 5 or 10 minutes to chat. So it's not always about the cover letter. The cover letter is good when they're required, especially for large companies, but don't spend too much time worrying about every sentence. It's not that important. They're going to skim it. I would say what's more important in order to find efficiency in your job search is to make sure you have a solid list of templates that you can pull from for both LinkedIn outreaches and Clearbit. And all of those templates I've created for you, and I will give them to Brady. They're already in there in a Google Doc.
Beautiful. I know people are excited for that, for access to all these resources.
Awesome.
Okay. A question that comes up all the time. Asking for salary ranges, East Coast, West Coast. I know it's like opening a can of worms to try to answer this question. So if you have resources of places people could look for some of these ranges, or if you feel comfortable spitting out some numbers, that'd be great too.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's start here. Let me think for a minute. So I'm going to give you the raw numbers of last quarter for me. So these are people that graduated from App Academy, and some of them had backgrounds that had nothing to do with, like we said, restaurant, construction, retail. Some of them had a CS degree. Some of them even had a master's, and then some of them had nothing. So we're all over the board here. And let me think. So the lowest salary that I hired for New York for this past quarter would be probably 65,000, but that was with the, if you do a really good job in 3 months, we automatically bump you up to 98. So that was the lowest I've seen. The highest that I've seen so far in New York right now with that background was 120. That happened about 3 or 4 times this past quarter. For New York, for San Francisco, I had, let's see, the highest paying one. I'm trying to think. I had a couple. So I had one person that got offered 140 base with a 35K sign-on bonus. I had another person in San Diego get 90. I had another person in LA get 85. I had another person in San Francisco come in at 105. So they're kind of all over the map, but I would say that the standard is between 80 and 120. If you get above 110, yes, like amazing, but don't expect that. Be like, the way that I look at this too is, if this is your first job, if you are trying to get your foot in the door somewhere, you need to donate this year to your career as if it were a fellowship. You need to get your foot in the door and get as much experience as you can, even if you're only making 70K a year. It doesn't matter. That's enough to pay your bills for anybody, right? That's enough to breathe. That's enough to live, you can budget, right? But for 1 year, you can do it. And then after that, you basically get to write your own ticket. And people like me are going to be hitting you up all the time, annoying you, asking if I can poach you from said job and bring you over here for 180 or 200. And I'll just tell you, because I want to be real with you guys, and I want you to understand the progression of your career. Like, the people that I've hired 3 times over, I have one guy that I hired, and he was fresh out of college. He didn't go to a boot camp or anything. And when I hired him, I gave him the offer letter. I want to say that this is like 5 years ago, but I want to say the offer was at like 60K. And he was like, wait, I'm getting.
I can take over the questions. I haven't done it in a while. Oh,
Brady's back.
She's better at the questions than I am.
Okay. Looks like someone's asking you for referrals to Lyft, Sam.
Well, I don't work there anymore, so too late. Yeah, maybe I can think of somebody that can get you referrals. I really recommend applying for the apprenticeship though when it comes up, but it's done for this year. I think the applications start usually in August. They only do 1 apprenticeship a year because the Lyft apprenticeship is 9 months, optionally 1 year. So it's a really long apprenticeship. So you only have 1 chance. You got to just pay attention when they announce apprenticeship applications. You got to apply like that day, because they're going to get flooded with thousands of people applying for the apprenticeship. So
Sam,
yeah.
do they give
Sorry,
do they give referral bonuses to the internal employees if they bring in outsiders? Okay.
So there's 2 different types of referrals. So I got 1 referral bonus this year, $5,000.
Nice.
So that kind of referral though is, you have to, like, I had to like write like I'm vouching for this person. I input their resume into the system. I write like a little short paragraph about why they're awesome. I rank them saying, are they in the top 10% of applicants, top 5%, top 1%? I have to say if I worked with them. And the person that I did get through, I referred a bunch of people, only one person got hired. I didn't even know them. I met them through an acquaintance. I did a Udacity self-driving car nano degree, and I started a study group, and I met somebody from there. And then they ended up going to work at Facebook. And then later on, I forget how, they found out that I posted, I think that Lyft was hiring, or my team was hiring. And then he messaged me that his other friend just left Facebook. So I had lunch with them. They came to Lyft and had lunch, and then I thought they would be a good fit, so I referred them. But my only interaction with them was, it was a friend of an acquaintance, and I met with them in person to be like, and like found out like what he was looking for and what he did at Facebook. And Facebook was his first job. He went to Hack Reactor, and he went to he got into Facebook as his first job. So
Nice.
he spent 2 years at Facebook, and then now he's at Lyft, and I referred him. And then there's a lower level of referrals, where we can just give out a referral link where it has like our code on it. Those are the kind of referrals we just post on LinkedIn, or I get messages from people that I don't know on LinkedIn. I just give them that link, because
Okay.
and that one is only $500 versus $5,000 for like the one where you input the person into the system. That one you're like almost guaranteed, I think, to get an interview. At least HR will call you for the first like phone screen. The other one where you just give out the ref link is much, it pulls much, it's much lower weight.
Okay. Good to know.
It's smart of them to have the various levels of referrals. Okay, so did you all get to the next question? Or I know I cut out for quite a while there.
No, we didn't.
Okay. So what are your tips on reapplying to jobs that you did an on-site with and then got rejected?
Okay. I would, well, first and foremost, I would look at the timeline. If it's, you want to wait a while if you got rejected. And if you got feedback, you want to make sure that that feedback has been implemented. I know it's interesting with different companies, like for Google and Facebook, I think you have to wait a year. But if it's not a FANG company and it's just a company and you got rejected and you know why, I would definitely reach back out again and maybe even reach out to, a new recruiter and start over if it's really somewhere that you want to work. I'm sure that you're in their system, but still it's okay it doesn't hurt. You literally can't lose anything by reapplying.
Nice. What?
Yeah, and just to add one quick thing, I actually interviewed at Lyft twice. Speaking of reapplying, I never got an offer the first time, and a year later, I got a referral the second time, and that time I got an offer.
Did they give you feedback the first round?
I don't think so. I don't remember, but I don't think so. But I did make it to the final round the first time, but I never got an offer.
Okay.
All right, moving on then. Could you list top 3 behaviors or characteristics that someone should exude for the majority of interviews? And then like, how could a person ensure that those shine through in a 60-minute interview or phone screen?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And Brady, when we are done here today, if you remind me, I will send you over the recruiting toolbox that I put together too, which I always refer to with my job seekers as like just a toolbox that you have full of stories that you can speak confidently of and things that you can pull out. Like your 3 strengths. Why should we hire you? Why should someone hire me over hiring Brady, right? Like, why do I stand out? What makes me stand out as a human and as an engineer? So I think the 3 things that are most important to me that I like to hear is, one is that you are really proud of your work, right? I always like to say I'm super proud of my work. So if I'm going to sit down and do something, I'm going to give it my all, right? I'm going to write clean, elegant code that looks really good and set up for the developer that comes behind me. If I put my name on something, you're going to bet that I'm going to give it 100%. So I'm always proud of my work. I am extremely innovative. So I'm not just a coder. I'm not just a doer. I'm also a thinker. And I like to be the type of person on a team that goes out and is curious and is finding new ways to do things better than we were doing them yesterday. So I always am looking for new ways to learn and bring ideas to the team. Let's see, the third one that I also like to hear is that I am really good working in a team. And as vague as that is, I would like to really focus on communication. I think that communication, both in my personal relationships as well as.
So how can you tell cold outreaches from recruiters? How can you tell like the legit ones from the scams, basically, to make sure that you're making the best use of your time and efforts?
Yeah, no, great question, because there's definitely some scammers out there. The first thing that I do whenever I find a new company that I want to look at or a job that's posted, I go first to their LinkedIn and I see how many employees that they have there. If you scroll underneath a little bit further to the right, it usually will have their funding there. And sometimes it's via Crunchbase, which is helpful. If it's not there and you're still feeling like kind of shady and you're like, oh, okay, it's 100 people, like it looks legit, but I'm not sure, go look on crunchbase.com and see if you can find what round they're in. If they are, maybe if they're a startup and they're a smaller company that you haven't heard of, then you can validate that they do in fact have funding, which is a big indicator that they are legit. So LinkedIn first, see how many people they have, check out their legitimacy, and then I would that's what I do, is I go to Crunchbase and I double check.
Yep, that's what I do too.
We kind of talked about well, I guess maybe not endorsements. Do recruiters ever look at the number of endorsements or assessment results from LinkedIn skills?
Honestly, no. I want to say that we utilize that because I know it's another like resource, but this is just my personal opinion. I don't have the time. I am scrolling, like I want to look at your projects. I want to see the picture that you have on LinkedIn. And then I want to see your recommendations, your work history. And it's too much. Like that's just too much for me. So I don't look at them.
Okay. And this actually just reminded me, I know, Sam, it looked like you've had the same experience. If you do take those assessments, maybe you're not going to be catching the eye of recruiters, but LinkedIn has sometimes sent out notifications of like, hey, have you checked out this job? It looks like you are skilled at the things that they're looking for. And did it like unlock? I can't remember what the note was. It like unlocked the application process, even though it wasn't open.
I forget what it was. I think it said that I got notified before they were like posting it or something.
Yeah, I've seen the same note, and it does seem helpful. I guess we should try to remember.
I think eventually, yeah. I mean, my theory is LinkedIn and GitHub are both owned by Microsoft. I think eventually they're just gonna like automate and use all that data. So, I mean, it doesn't take long to do the assessments. I do it just for fun. So
it's good to know like what you should brush up on, right? Like it's a learning experience in general.
Yeah, it doesn't take that long too. So yeah, even though it might not help you right now, like you never know where that data is gonna go into some algorithm. It might surface opportunities for you.
Mm-hmm. All right. How about some thoughts or importance on creating a personal brand as a new software engineer? Should they just create a logo and post code on LinkedIn, or develop some sort of theme?
That's interesting. I like that. So a lot of engineers that are graduating from boot camps, I've noticed have put freelance under their current, like what they're currently doing. So in that case, yes, a logo could be kind of fun. Why not? Right. If you are in fact doing freelance, I think personal branding in general for everybody is super important. So I think that if you can kind of, I don't know that you need so much as a logo if you're not going to do freelance, but just make sure your portfolio and your LinkedIn and everything that you have out there for your potential employers to see is looking really good. And then even with your projects to like test them all the time. We have problems with Heroku where nothing's live, and like the worst thing that could happen is for someone to go on and look at your projects and be like, all of this is broken, like next, we don't have time for that, so just keeping up to date as far as making sure everything is working properly and looking good. But I don't think you specifically need to really go do a logo unless you're going to do freelance.
And then would you recommend a contract to hire position?
Yes, absolutely. Again, I will say this one more time because I think it's so important, is looking at the first year as just a fellowship, right? So if a contract to hire comes into your lap and it's a good hourly rate and you can get experience, hell yeah, take it. Even if it's only 6 months or 3 months, it doesn't matter. It's experience that you can get on your resume. And I know with App Academy, like if someone gets a part-time contract position, they don't even have to start paying App Academy back out of that. We still wait till you get a full-time job. But that's going to make you be able to talk about writing code in a production environment during your next interview. So if you can do a contract to hire, like, absolutely.
All right. Do you know of some lesser known job search resources or resources that job seekers tend to overlook?
Yeah, I would say that for me, and I know I mentioned this before, but I'm a huge Reddit fan, even though the UI drives me mad. If you go into, just say, for example, like type in React, right, and look at that group, I can't remember off the top of my head, but if you look over to the right, you can see that there's like 600,000 members in that group. And then it shows you how many people are actually live, right? So if you think about that mass of people who actually care about React, it's huge, right? That's a huge network for you. Same thing with LinkedIn groups. I know that most engineers hate Facebook, but Facebook groups, that's where I used to post a ton of my jobs too, and I would still get traction from there. So using social media as well. And then, I would say that overall, finding things that work for you. Like I have people that come on and they're like, hey, I need to do a creative outreach session. I'm like, cool, where do you start? And they're like, Indeed. I'm like, yeah, but what else? Well, just Indeed. I'm like, oh man. So I start my day out. I have a Slack channel with all my job seekers, and I start my day out by going just onto Google and I type in software engineer, maybe New York, San Fran, wherever. And then I go over to the filters and I hit the last day. So I'm always current. I only want to see jobs that are super, super current. You don't want to apply to things that are 3 and 5 weeks old, right? Those jobs are flooded. So you get them fresh right then and there. That 9 to 12, 9 to 2 spot where you're just applying, doing creative outreaches. And I will take those jobs that I find and just drop them in Slack all morning long. So it's simple things by really just mixing up your pool, right? Like, are you on ZipRecruiter? Are you on Dice? Are you on Ladders? What's your strategy? So I think a lot of the job search journey in general is so much more enjoyable if you have a strategy and a plan. If you're just kind of like hacking at it and you're just throwing shit at the wind and hoping something sticks, it's not going to. You have to have a plan and you have to have a strategy. This past week, we just did a huge kickoff 2021 mental mindset session at App Academy. And it was awesome because it was all about just really planning to own your job search and be really deliberate and intentional about it. I think to your question, what most people are missing is the point about that you own it. You're the CEO of your life, and you can blame things on, murder hornets or Trump or anything you want. You can come up with a million different excuses, or you can just own it and take the intentional and deliberate route to really create the job search journey that is going to land you that job. So I think that number one key of holding yourself accountable is so missed. Like there's so many resources out there for you to be a part of, and ask yourself, like, be honest with yourself. You know, I had everybody rate themselves. How many creative outreaches did you do? 1 through 10. How many happy hours have you come to on Saturdays? Right? Is this the first one you've shown up to in the last year? Like, you have to be honest with yourself and be real with yourself, and then figure out what are the next steps in order to be successful.
Powerful. I love it.
Yep, awesome.
Should we do maybe one more question?
Yeah, one more.
All right. This one was, do recruiters ever watch video demos of a project? I guess maybe if that's like, I guess I'll just let you answer, because maybe it depends on where it is, or I don't know.
Yeah, sure. For me, yes and no. If it's there, yes, I'm going to watch it. But I prefer, as a technical recruiter, I would rather watch you walk me through it live. And I would like to see 2 screens. I'd like to see the code, want to understand your thought process. I want to be able to ask you questions on why you did this versus that, and then see the UI and make sure that for me as a user, I can understand it and use it. So I would rather see the live demo, but if there is a demo there, then yes, I'm going to watch it.